Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the new workshop in France. The old workshop still exists in the UK, but this is the French one and it's coming on really well. So, I haven't made a video for a long time, I know that, I've been very busy, but today's video is all about the StranoBikes Parador Tour 2024, which took place in September. Today is November the 8th, 2024, and in September the tour ran. So what I want to do today is I want to explain to you how it came about, how I planned it, how I chose the route, why I chose the route I chose, the ethos of the trip, who the participants were, what sort of places we stayed in, how the trip actually went, and the conclusions. What did I learn from doing this? Now, bearing in mind, I am not a tour guide, okay? I am not doing tours for commercial gain, and this is certainly not something I had planned to get involved with. So, in April of this year, I was on a ferry coming back from Spain, having been in Spain on my Husqvarna 701 doing some off-roading and some on-roading. It was a combo. There's a video about it. And I was on the ferry and I was sitting with some chaps. I was on my own, but I was sitting with these other motorcyclists and they'd been on a tour. And as I was chatting to them and just sort of mulling things, I thought to myself, do you know what? I could run a tour. I mean, in my life, I have travelled extensively. I have taken literally thousands of flights, almost always to do with work, and almost always on my own because I've been travelling for work on my own, and I've organised everything myself. In fact, the only time I didn't organise something myself, it was organised for me. For some absolutely unbelievable reason, I was in economy. I mean, what were they thinking? Ridiculous. So, but that only happened once. Of course, now I pay for my own flights. Everything's economy. So, I thought I could organise a tour. I'm a good organiser. I know how to plan a trip. I've planned loads of motorcycle trips myself, for me and for my wife. Why wouldn't it work? So, when I got back, I talked it over with my wife, and she had some great input. You know, she's an intelligent woman, and she had some very good reasons why I had to be very cautious about this. In terms of managing expectations, what sort of people do you want on the tour? How will I cope with going on tour with other people? Because as anyone that knows this channel, you'll know that I tend not to like going on tour with other people. You know, I've done it a few times and I haven't particularly enjoyed it. So I'd be very much going against the grain of what I like to do on a motorbike tour. But the reason why I thought I might want to do this is because I love motorcycle touring. I love exploring places. I love seeing things for the first time and maybe seeing things that other people generally don't see. And certainly when you do off-roading, you know, when I've done some off-roading in the mountains, you know, in other countries, it's amazing. You know, you've got this wonderful feeling of privilege that you are seeing things that generally people don't see, and I really like that. Now, on one of my motorcycle number plates in the UK, on motorcycle number plates in the UK, I don't know whether it's legal or illegal, but you can have a slogan put at the bottom of your number plate. And often, I mean, even in France, I mean, I'm looking at my wife's car now, which is French, and, you know, underneath it's got a whole string of blurb about the garage she bought it from. So it's not to say you couldn't over here. But in the UK, I remember a guy I used to know, someone I met on a tour actually, he, I don't know if you remember, but John Lewis, the store in the UK, they had a sort of slogan, and it said, "Never knowingly undersold." Okay, that was their slogan. Now, a lot of people didn't really understand what it meant, which I'm not surprised, because it's a very unusual way of saying we won't be beaten on price and quality. So I thought, well, what slogan could I have? If I wanted a slogan on my bike, Sorry, getting back to the guy I met on the tour. Yeah, he had a slogan on his motorcycle number plate, and it said "Never knowingly understood," which I thought was hilarious. Okay, I thought it was very clever. So and now the slogan I've got on one of my bikes, or maybe two, is "Low wanker tolerance threshold." Okay, which I think is a perfectly reasonable thing to say, so that people know, you know, I have a very low tolerance threshold to wankers. Okay, so bearing that in mind, this was one of the things that my wife suggested might be something to consider before I start going down this road of organising it, because, you know, as my wife says quite correctly, in 10 people, one of them is going to be an annoying idiot. It's a fact. It's a statistic, and as we know, all statistics are true. And it was something that concerned me, but I thought, well, I'm doing this as an experiment. You know, I'm not doing this to say, oh, I'm launching a career as a tour guide. I want to know, can I do this? Could I actually do this thing? And would I cope with it? Would they cope with me? Well, obviously they would. And, you know, how would it actually pan out? And I won't know that until I've done it. So, my idea was I will put a note out at the end of one of my videos just saying, I'm thinking of doing this. If you're interested, drop me an email at the email address below. And I deliberately put this message out at the end of one of my videos, because I thought, well, if people are interested enough in the channel and me to watch to the end of a video, they're the sort of people that I'd like to be going on the tour, if they thought they might want to do that. You know, I don't want to put it out at the beginning of a video, because lots of people watch the beginning of videos and then either get bored or it's not a subject they're interested in or whatever, and they switch off. So, put the note out. I had about, I think, 9 or 10 emails back, which was more than I was expecting. I was looking for 5 or 6 participants, okay? I didn't want a big group. I didn't want to do any of this sort of, you know, second man drop-off business and all this palaver. And I know from speaking to other people that have been on tours with maybe sort of 15 to 18 people, it's been an absolute nightmare. Like herding cats, absolute nightmare. So I thought, keep it small, do a follow my leader plan, and let's just see how it goes. You know, it can't be that difficult to do this. So I picked the first 6 people, got back to them, and I arranged a call with them, and I spoke to each of them individually, and just to sort of, so that they got to know me a bit and I got to know them a bit, and just sort of their riding experience and all this sort of thing. Anyway, I then put together a plan of where I thought the tour might go. So my way of touring, as you will know if you followed the channel, is I think posh hotels and motorcycling are a wonderful combination. Okay, so, and the idea of staying in a hostel, or even worse, God forbid, camping, I mean, why anyone would want to do that, I've got no idea. Because where do you shower? Okay, number one, where do you have a shower in the morning? So anyway, it had to be posh hotels, and it had to be routes that or areas of a country that I enjoyed. Okay, because ultimately this is not a tour where I am making any commercial gain. I'm going on a bike ride and I'm inviting people to join me. That's the sort of the concept. So I put together a plan, staying predominantly, I thought the best country to go to would be Spain, because I love Spain. The weather's almost certainly going to be good. The roads are amazing. There's almost no traffic. The people are lovely. The food is good and reasonable. You can stay in nice hotels. There are plenty of very, very nice hotels in Spain. So that was what I did. And I put together a rough itinerary, and I sent it out and said, this is what I'm planning. This is an approximate cost. Okay, because the ferry is not cheap. From the UK to Santander or Bilbao, the Brittany ferries are bloody expensive. ridiculously expensive when you consider the other routes of similar distance. I mean, just as an example, when my wife and I went to Sardinia, we've been to Mallorca and Sardinia on the bike. I mean, the return trip from Nice, I think it was Nice to Sardinia, was something like €270, including an upgraded cabin. And that's an overnight ferry. You know, that's a sort of a 14-hour ferry. And it's about 300 kilometres or so, or 300 miles or whatever it is. You know, and yet Brittany ferries from the UK to the north of Spain, you're looking at, with a bike return, the thick end of £700-800, which I think is mental. Anyway, that aside, so I put together a plan and a rough costing, because, you know, it may be that people thought it was a great idea and then realised it was going to be quite expensive, and maybe they thought that they didn't want to do that. So sent it out, and 2 people dropped out. One person said it's a bit rich for me, and I thought that's fine. You know, that's it's not a problem. You know, I didn't in any way feel badly about the guy. He was sorry he couldn't do it. And another guy, he wasn't sure health-wise whether he was going to be able to cope with the distances we were going to be riding. So that's fine. I was down to 4, and that 4 really wasn't enough. So I then asked someone I know, a motorcycling, well, a friend of mine who do also motorcycles, and he said, yeah, he'd love to join. Okay, so we were now up to 5. That's great. So then I had a phone conversation with each of them. Then I put together a full itinerary, and the plan was, you book the ferry, and when you've confirmed to me you've booked the ferry, then I will book the hotels. And I'll book them all on my credit card, and you will pay me in advance, not right now, but you know, a month or so before we go, because we're booking so many rooms, the hotels are going to be charging me before we get there. And in one case, they took it 2 weeks before we even turned up. So I didn't want to be landed with a hotel bill for someone that didn't show up. Bearing in mind, I don't know these people. I mean, they know me, but much more than I know them. So, so I was down to 4, then back to 5 when a friend of mine joined, and then we got very, very close to the point where people were going to have to give me some money for the hotels. Bearing in mind, they've already booked their own ferries. And another chap dropped out, and for whatever reason he chose not to come, even though he confirmed to me he'd booked the ferry. Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't, I don't know. So then I went back to my list. You know, if you think back to my 9 or 10 original people who said, yeah, I want to come. And I thought, right, well, I'm going to go to the next one on the list. And I reached out to this guy, would you like to join? There's space available. He said, oh my God, I'd love to come. And I'm going to fly over from Canada and rent a bike. And I thought, wow, that is commitment. You know, I mean, that is seriously making an effort to join the tour. I was very impressed. I was seriously impressed. The route, okay. The plan was to stay in Paradors as much as possible, and where we couldn't stay in Paradors, stay in very nice hotels. And the route was Santander, get there sort of mid to late afternoon, the first stop, then Avila, then Merida, then into Portugal to Viseu, then out of Portugal back into Spain, northwestern Spain, and go to Ourense, and then up to the north coast in Gijón, and then back to Santander and the ferry home. So that was the route. The only 2 hotels which weren't Paradors was the one in Portugal, the Viseu, which was a Pousada, and is a blooming amazing hotel, beautiful hotel. And a hotel in Ourense, which turned out to be absolutely fantastic. So, Santo Domingo de Calzada was a lovely, lovely Parador. There's actually 2 Paradors in Santo Domingo, which I didn't realise, because I've stayed in one of them twice, which is right in the centre, literally right by the cathedral. and I thought that was the only one. But the one I actually booked, unwittingly, was about 500 metres down the road, but actually it's nicer than the one in the centre, so I was really pleased with that. Avila was lovely. Really, really lovely. Beautiful town. It's got it's a walled town with a castle, and the Parador is beautiful. That was really nice. Then we went on to Merida. Merida is got a massive amount of Roman history. There's an amphitheatre, lovely Roman amphitheatre, which we didn't go and see. We arrived a bit late. And there's a lot of Roman columns and stuff. I mean, if you ever wonder what did the Romans ever do to us, for us rather, well, they did Merida. Okay, if you're ever in any doubt, just go to Merida, and then you'll realise exactly what the Romans did. And then from Merida we went on to Viseu in Portugal, over the mountains. Fantastic roads, absolutely fantastic roads. I mean, we did some incredible mountain routes. When we left Viseu, we were riding through the north of Portugal. Now, Portugal had a lot of forest fires, and I wasn't unduly concerned, because I thought, well, if the route that we're on is taking us into forest fires, it's going to be closed. They're not going to let you drive through a forest fire. Pardon me. Now, as it turned out, the night we were in Viseu, we had torrential rain, absolutely biblical rain, which to a large degree put the fires out, which was fantastic. I mean, from our perspective, and from the bomberos or bomboneros, whatever they're called, the firemen. We rode through areas that had been affected by the forest fires, and it was really dystopian. I mean, really weird. Unfortunately, and it's my fault, we didn't stop and take any photos, because it would have been really... I don't imagine we'll ever ride through anything like it ever again. You basically had blackened earth and the skeletons of trees, because you were going through what had been a forest, and just the road. The road was sort of snaking its way through this blackened landscape and these skeletal trees, and just every now and again there'd be a sort of wisp of smoke coming up from what had, was still sort of smouldering. The embers were still smouldering. It was really weird. It was amazing to see and to ride through, to be honest. In fact, we came upon a burnt out car. We didn't stop to see if anyone was in it. I'm sure they weren't. But I mean, the intensity and the sort of the destruction of these fires was something to be seen. I'll tell you, something to be seen. It was really, really, really amazing. And then up into Spain, and back over the border and up to Ourense. Ourense is a lovely, lovely town. I mean, to be honest, the northwest of Spain is very overlooked. I mean, the weather often isn't that good, to be fair. It's a bit like, because it's the first place the western rains, after coming over the Atlantic, start dropping. A bit like Ireland. Ireland, it rains a lot and it's lovely, but it's lovely because it rains a lot. And northwestern Spain is very similar. The weather's poor, but when it's not raining, it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And Ourense is a lovely town, very vibrant, loads going on, lovely restaurants, great bars, squares with people. You can just sit and watch the world go by. It's a lovely thing to do. And we had a great hotel. I mean, one of the interesting things about the hotel, and I'd never stayed in this hotel before, although I've stayed in Ourense before, was in my room, and I know from chatting to the chaps that other rooms were similar. You had the bedroom bit and then the bathroom, obviously, and between the two, over near the bath, so you had the bath. This wall which went onto the bedroom was a window, and in the bedroom was a blind, a Venetian blind, and so if someone was in the shower, presumably someone and you wanted to see what they were up to. I mean, I'm not suggesting that this went on, because everyone had their own room, just to be clear. You could open the blind and watch them. which might be really interesting. I mean, unfortunately, of course, it was only in your bedroom you could do this. You couldn't like watch the woman next door having a shower, which would have been really interesting, especially if she had the opportunity to open the blind too. That could be interesting. So anyway, lovely hotel. It had 4 floors of underground parking, which, considering it was right in the centre, was fantastic. We were on the ground floor, and they only charged us for 2 parking spaces because there were 6 bikes, so we got into 2 parking spaces, and it was great. It was really great. Lovely, lovely hotel. And then we went on to Gijón, or Gijón, as it's correctly pronounced, and which is right on the north coast of Spain. And unfortunately, we hit bad weather. The last day, it was okay for until about 11 o'clock in the morning, and then it started raining. We had some quite heavy rain, and then it was just a bit miserable, really, for the rest of the day, which was a shame. I mean, the roads were brilliant, and the scenery was incredible, but it would have been more incredible had it not been raining. And I have ridden some of those roads, the roads that we rode, when it has been beautifully sunny, and it's quite spectacular. So we ended up back in Gijón, and then the next day, of course, we headed off to the ferry. One of the participants was going, well, actually 2. The Canadian chap and this friend of mine who joined, they were actually going back the next day. The Canadian guy was flying back to Canada. So it all seemed to work quite well. We rode some incredible roads. We stayed in some amazing hotels. We had some lovely meals, just stopping literally by the roadside, going into a cafe, eating with the locals. It was great. It was a great experience. I mean, my sort of perfect participant was someone that had ridden a bike for a long time, but had never had the courage or opportunity to ride in Europe. And one of the chaps was exactly that, and that was great, because I just wanted to share the joys of motorcycling in a foreign country. That's what I wanted to do. So, the conclusion. What did I learn? Well, I suppose the first thing I learned was when I plan a trip for me, I generally aim to do 400-ish kilometres a day. Okay, maybe, if it's 425, 430, 450 even, that's okay when I'm on my own. Now, so therefore I planned the days around that sort of 400-ish mark, which was a mistake on reflection. And the reason it was a mistake was not because you needed to ride fast to keep up, because you didn't. Because this was not about speed. This was about seeing the places. It was about riding. It's about the ride. It's not, we're not going into cathedrals and seeing the Virgin and all this palaver. We're there to ride bikes on amazing roads. But when, for example, when you stop for fuel, and bearing in mind, we were governed, obviously, by the person who had the least fuel range. The lowest fuel range, which happened to be one of the chaps on an MV Augusta, which drank fuel like there was no tomorrow. I mean, to be honest, he'd have been much better off with a fuel tanker following him, because he was every 100 miles he'd drained sort of 17 litres out of his tank. Everyone else was sort of doing a one fill up. They were filling up every 3rd stop. Whereas this chap, he couldn't get enough fuel, or certainly the bike couldn't. So one of the things that I learned was everything takes bloody ages to do when there's a group. When I stop for fuel, when I'm on a tour, when I stop for fuel, full stop. I stop for fuel, fill up, pay, go. Well, you try doing that with 6 people, some of which just faff endlessly faffing, and you'll stop for fuel, and then they'll, so you have like 2 bikes. The front one fills up and moves the bike while they go and pay, which allows the other one to move up to the pump. Well, the second one, on occasions, moved up the pump, depending on who it was, because there were faffers and there were not faffers in the group. You know, they'd get to the pump, the second one, and they'd think, oh, I suppose I should take my gloves off, really. Oh, I need to check my top box. Did I put my pants away? Oh, yes, I did. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's what am I here for? Oh, I remember. Yes, it's filling up with fuel. Now, where did that fuel pump go? Oh, it's next to my bike. I'll fill up. And all the time, I've already filled up and paid, and I'm waiting, and others are waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting. And you're thinking, how long? How can this possibly take this long? It can't possibly take this long, but it is taking this long. And so where you might have a fuel stop that would take, say, I don't know, say 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, okay? This was taking 20. Well, you do a couple of fuel stops or 3 fuel stops a day, suddenly you've gained an hour. You know, you've added an hour onto your day. And so as a result, we were not getting to our destination hotels until sort of 6:30, sometimes even later, because of the faffing. You know, when we set off in the morning, you know, and the thing is, I suppose if everyone first of all, everyone knew where the destination was. Everyone knew where the destination hotel was. So if they didn't want to ride with the group, you know, if they thought, well, today I want to ride on my own, or today, you know, I just wanted to do something different, that's fine. You know, I mean, I wasn't earning any money out of this. They paid for this holiday. If they wanted to do that, then they could do that. It didn't bother me. It only bothered me if it affected the rest of the group. You know, if one of them was being a pain in the arse, it bothered me as the organiser that the rest of the group were inconvenienced, which happened on occasion, and other members of the group would say, such and such is being a right pain in the arse, can you not say something? And I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm not a commercial tour guide, but on the other hand, this person is getting right on me flipping nerves. Which comes back to my, you know, my intolerance of wankers. But anyway, so the first thing I learnt was, if I did this again, be less ambitious with the distances, okay? Because even if you don't have faffers, then you're going to, it does take, everything takes much longer, you know, and everything just, it was like swimming in marmalade, you know, everything was like laborious and slow, because you've got to wait for these people to be ready to thumbs up and off we go, you know. So I think if I did it again, I'd be less ambitious with the mileage. And on the way back, on the ferry back, one of the chaps said to me, he said, we've had an amazing time. Everyone's had an amazing time. It's been brilliant. You know, we've done things and seen things that we would not have done had you not organised this trip. And you know, we're all really, you know, we're pleased we've done it. But what did you get out of it? And do you know what? That was such an astute question, because I thought, well, what did I get out of it? You know, because I've done lots of touring, and you know, I've loved touring. I do love touring. I love touring on my own. I love touring with my wife. You know, we have lovely holidays together, and I go on my own and I see places and go thousands of miles, just enjoying being in a different country. But doing this, you know, I felt a great sense of responsibility, because I wanted it all to work. I wanted, it was important for me that having organised it, it all worked well. So, you know, were the routes good? Were the hotels good? Where we stopped for lunch, because of course we were stopping on the fly. I had no idea what these restaurants, they could have been utterly terrible. You know, were they going to work out okay? Were the breakfasts going to be up to par? All these sort of mild anxieties that I had about the trip, because whether I'm being paid for it or not, people are looking to me to be the, you know, I'm the organizer, and therefore there's a certain inherent responsibility built into taking that role. So when it came to, you know, what did I get out of it? I really struggled, to be honest, to say anything positive. Really, I met some nice people, and I met some people that I would happily ride with again. But you know, I don't know really what I got out of it. You know, I suppose what I got out of it was I did share. The ethos of the project was to share my joy of travelling motorcycling in a foreign country, and so in that respect, yes, that I did get that out of it. You know, I did gain something from that. And would I do it again? You know, that was the other big question that a few people asked me. Would I do it again? I would do it again. I mean, at the moment in my life, I've got a hell of a lot going on, and if I do another one, it won't be for a while. But you know, the whole thing was an experiment to a very great degree, because I wanted to know. You know, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be retired, and I might think, well, maybe I could turn this into. Maybe I could do it commercially. Maybe I could look into it more and actually do it commercially, and obviously do it differently. But this time, it was all about, you know, can I do it? You know, does it work? Do the people get out of it what I hope they will? And the answer to all of those questions is yes, yes, yes. You know, because yes, it worked. Yes, they got a lot out of it. Yes, it all came together. There wasn't really, you know, there were no disasters. Nobody crashed. Everyone was fairly affable. They all got, you know, everyone got on well together. There was nothing really that didn't work about it. And I was probably being a bit hard on myself, you know, worrying unnecessarily. So yeah, I would do it again. So that's it, really. That's the story of me organising and planning and doing a motorcycle tour in Spain. It was brilliant. I fully encourage people to go touring in Spain. There were so many times when we were riding along roads and we were the only people on that section of road. You could have been, you know, everyone else could have died, and you wouldn't have known. It was brilliant. You know, Spain is a lovely, lovely place to go motorcycling. And of course, the other benefit of going to Spain and motorcycling is Spanish people like motorcyclists. They're not seen as these social pariahs that, like they are in the UK, where you're sort of looked down on as like scum. I mean, to be fair, there are motorcyclists that don't do the motorcycle community any favours by acting like wankers. But generally, motorcyclists are not wankers. And certainly in Spain, it's encouraged. You know, motorcycling is encouraged. And in France, you know, I mean, I often see groups of motorcyclists training. You know, they have these special bikes with crash bars around everything, and you know, there's like 4 in a row, and they're training. You know, because motorcycling in France and in Spain is encouraged. So that's it. Hope you've mildly enjoyed listening to me rabbit again. I will be making other videos a bit more regularly, I promise. So that's it for now. So ride safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.